Yes, friends. Our second section is the Plants menu. In Twinmotion, by looking at the parts of the icons and the icon images, you can see what is under the icons. This part here is our Plants menu. In the Plants menu, look, there are trees, and then we have environmental elements. It goes on with grass, rocks, and so on. Friends, which one? Oh, if you definitely click, for example, if you click on the rocks section, the rocks will appear. You can take the rocks from here and drop them here. You can adjust their size, make them bigger or smaller. Various arrangements related to these. Again, you have the chance to do this with the move, rotate, and scale sections here. Look, a size like this will be ideal for us. Look, when I select it, you can see that the bottom part is left underneath. Look, a part of it remains below. With the move button, you can lift it up again to make it level with the ground. An effect like this. When I return again, if you click here from the landscape section, friends, look, when you leave this, an effect related to it will appear here. Look, did you see? I have changed the surface effect here, friends. When I return to the library section, friends, we can drag and drop any item we want here. Now, the landscape effect here is actually a topic that needs to be explained separately, friends, because there are some important factors we will use here. I will not touch on these now. I will come back again. In the materials section, you can grab the trees from the tree section and drop them into your scene to create an effect like this. The effect of the trees you placed in the scene. Let me move this up. Look, the shading part here will create a different ambience, a different object in your scene. So the shadows falling here create a different ambience for us, because blocking the direct light from the sun and the light coming onto the object with the tree is an important issue for us. When you create a scene, a villa model, or a town or village, or when you create a scene from your imagination, decorating it with plants will provide a nice ambiance for us. Friends, it will create a beautiful appearance. Or when building a mountain house. As seen in a photo, using trees similar to those in the photo will enhance the realism for you. That's why I can take the trees here and place them there, as you can see. Increasing the number of trees, friends, can actually cause our system to slow down a bit. Therefore, if your system is a low-performance one, make sure to use the trees here efficiently. What does this mean? Look, there is a stats section here. When you click here, it shows your processor, RAM, and graphics card. It says to use the CPU, which is the processor, the GPU, graphics card, and the RAM of the GPU graphics card. The FPS value here is the speed rate in your scene. Friends, your range of motion actually depends on the occupancy rate of your scene. The FPS value there shows how successful you are. Look, there's a finger pointing. It says you are currently working on an efficient system. When does 170 FPS become inefficient? When it drops below 30 FPS, your scene starts to become inefficient and begins to shrink. You become unable to move in the scene. Therefore, it is beneficial to pay attention when adding objects here. In other words, adding too many objects here doesn't make sense. It will lag a lot, in other words. Therefore, it's always beneficial to add elements in a balanced and proportional way when preparing your scene, friends. Let me go back. Let's move on to the mixing section here. Look, there are different parts in the mixing section. In other words, you can use these parts here to create somewhat different effects. Generally, look at forest effects. A broken tree, a tree broken by the wind, okay? Or a tree without roots, or with roots, but without a top. The leaf accumulations here. Let me place the leaf accumulation here. It will be more visible. Look, as you can see here, the old, dried, decayed leaf accumulation looks more like a compact leaf pile, or like ivy. Look, by adding these, what could you even do with them? As I showed here, you can move them with the moon command. As you can see, you can rotate them with the rotate command to change their direction, or you can enlarge and shrink them with the scale command. The same actions apply to these as well, friends. Whatever you do, first select the object. After selecting, continue to play with them using the move, rotate, or scale commands here. Now I will come back. Look here again. There is a section for grasses. Depending on the usage rate of your scene, let's do this. Sorry, let's close this, friends. I am pressing here again. Look, there are various grass and plant features here. By using these, you can create various elements by adding them to your scene. You might ask a question like this: are we going to add these one by one? Here, no. We can add these extensively by painting our scene from the popularity section, which I will show later. As I said, adding too much actually makes the scene very laggy. Therefore, your screen, graphics card, and computer need to be very good when preparing the scene. In the future, in the graphics card section of Twinmotion and RDES, the specifications of the graphics card are very important. By using the various grasses here, you can create flowers or grasses, e.e. as various elements. As you can see, as I mentioned, you can drag and drop all the objects you have selected here. You also have the chance to modify the objects you have dropped from the menus here. Friends, you can modify all of them. In the other part, here is the Mondscape segment seamlessly. We will see how to change the environmental elements in the scene, namely the soil element. In this section, we have seen the plants part.